The film I'll be talking about today is No Country for Old Men. This film was directed by Joel and Ethan Coen and based on the book No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. This film stars Tommy Lee Jones, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, and Woody Harrelson. This film won the Academy Award for Best Picture and was called by film critic Roger Ebert a perfect film. High praise, but it's worthy of this picture. If anything, it almost sounds like an understatement after you've seen this film. What makes it all the more remarkable is so many people have tried to translate a Cormac McCarthy novel to the screen with disastrous results. Films like The Road with Viggo Mortensen or All the Pretty Horses, which Billy Bob Thornton directed and starred Matt Damon and Penelope Cruz, and it never has worked. As good of a writer as he is, as good as his novels are, it almost seems like a futile attempt by a filmmaker to even try and capture that, to translate it from the page to the screen. The better the writer, the harder the task. That is why what the Coen brothers did with this film is such an amazing feat. I can still remember the first time I saw this film. I saw this film the year it came out, 2007. And my immediate reaction when it was over was, what did I just see? You're so used to seeing so many formula pictures that when one like this comes along, you kind of sit in the seat after it's over, and every scene was so good and so well done and so unique and so unlike anything that I had ever seen before it. And yet it's one of the few times to where I wanted to watch it again immediately. I wanted right then to go into it a second time, like maybe I'll get something that I missed the first time, because that was too much to take in all at once. I even remember not just the first time I saw it, the second time I saw it. And the impact was even more powerful the second time. Tommy Lee Jones's narration at the beginning of this film as Sheriff Ed Tom Bell knocked me out even more the second go round. I've gone on YouTube so many times just to listen to his narration as that film begins. And I hate the cliches of, oh, it gave me goosebumps, it gives me chills. This is one of the few times where there's no way around it. It gives you goosebumps. Tommy Lee Jones, that southern voice that's not a put on, he really is from West Texas, where this film takes place. He fits this character. You can't picture any other actor playing the sheriff. And his narration about this world that is changing in front of him, about he doesn't know what to make of it. The crime today, it's hard to even take its measure. And he almost feels as if this world has passed him by and his time has come now. He doesn't have to point blank say that in the narration. It's inferred. And as he's narrating it, we just see scenes of the Texas landscape. And Tommy Lee Jones once said about another film in an interview with Charlie Rose, The Searchers, another great Western, that what bothered him about The Searchers was that it was supposed to have taken place in Texas. And anybody that watches that film knows that's not Texas. That's Utah. It's Monument Valley. Beautiful. Amazing to watch, especially in that Technicolor, the way it pops. But it's not West Texas. Tommy Lee Jones being from that area, it was important to him that if you're going to do a film, it's meant to take place in West Texas, we're doing it in West Texas. Who better than the Coen brothers to then take on this picture? They had already, in their repertoire, on their resume at this point, by the time they've made No Country for Old Men, they've already done The Big Lebowski, Fargo, Blood Simple, Miller's Crossing. You can retire on that. Oh, brother, where art thou? You can call it a day. And then they attempt something that could really be disastrous, because Cormac McCarthy's not just a good writer. He's arguably one of the best. And I wouldn't even say arguably. He just is one of the best. You might say arguably the best ever. He's one of those that you can say there might be somebody as good, but there's nobody better. His ear for dialogue, his prose is unrivaled. Therefore, to embark on something like that, you're taking such a celebrated artist's work. You don't want to butcher it. And it was so amazing to see people hold it with such respect, and if anything, enhance it. And I think the biggest compliment you could give this film is that I think Cormac McCarthy himself would say, job well done. And Tommy Lee Jones himself is an enormous fan of Cormac McCarthy. So you had people working on the project that had an appreciation for the art form of which the novel was, and were going to do their absolute best to make sure that nothing was butchered or diminished in the translation to the screen. And this film, so many people ask the same question after they've seen it. Because really what the film's about is a couple different characters. There's the Josh Brolin character, Llewellyn Moss. There's Woody Harrelson, who has a small but very significant part in the film, is Carson Wells. And then there's Anton Chigurh, this evil, maniacal character who seems to just have no conscience. And he's unlike any bad guy I've ever seen in a film. His hairstyle, his demeanor, the way in which he speaks, his phrasing, everything about him is peculiar and original. And after we hear the Tommy Lee Jones narration, we're then introduced to this character where we see him murder a deputy. The way in which that deputy is murdered, and the way we see him fight for his life, and the look on Chigurh's face as he's killing him, we realize we're in for something that you normally don't get in a film. You literally see, when you watch this, that you just thought, you feel like you saw a deputy be murdered right in front of you. It's an eerie feeling. And this film deals with those themes of morality. What is moral? Who are we as people? It also deals with fate. Chigurh seems to have this thing of using a coin to decide whether somebody lives or dies, as if he himself is not the one doing this. He's just carrying out what he has to do. And he has this moral blankness, which makes the character so peculiar, just eerie. You watch him and you can't figure him out. And then we see the Brolin character, Llewellyn Moss, who's just this kind of no account guy who's out hunting one day and stumbles across this drug deal gone wrong and stumbles into some money and gets more than what he bargained for. And Brolin does a good job playing him in a way that he's not a really moral human being either. He's just this guy who got in over his head. But he has a certain cunning ability. And his wife, played by Kelly MacDonald, does such a good job here as just being this girl who just seems that she's powerless. She's just his wife along for the ride, doesn't know which way the river's flowing, doesn't know what's going on. And nobody seems to have any real sense of responsibility or morality. It just seems as though they react, but they don't think. They don't seem to understand the consequences that come with what they do. And once he takes the money and realizes, as he would say, I'm in the jackpot now, he comes into contact with Carson Wells, played by Woody Harrelson in the film, who explains to him, you are not going to get away from this guy, Anton Chigurh. He is going to find you. And he says, I've already come into contact with him once. And he said, well, you're still alive and you've come into contact with him. That says something about you. And he doesn't seem to understand that he's gotten hold of something that he's not ready for. And Harrelson explains to him, you can give him the money back. He's going to kill you anyway. You've inconvenienced him. And with him, it's not about money. And he said he's peculiar. With him, you could even say he has principles. He's not like us. The things that motivate most of us in life have zero impact on him. He's something we can't figure out. You need me. Later on, Carson Wells is contacted by Shigar. And the scene between Harrelson and Javier Bardem in that hotel room, when he's tracked him down, and Harrelson knows enough to know this is not some guy who has any morality. This is someone who can't be reasoned with, but he's still trying. And he looks at him and he says, you don't have to do this. And he seems to find that Shigar amusing. And he said, everybody always says that. And he says, but you should just accept your circumstances. There'd be more dignity in it. And Harrelson does such a great job of, you just see this desperation set in on him. And he knows he's finally met his maker. It's over for him. He's with someone who can't be reasoned with. It's as if there's nothing there. There's no appealing to anything. And watching him squirm for his life, hope that maybe this evil man that he sees in front of him has some vestige of empathy in there somewhere, is one of the most gut-wrenching scenes I've ever seen in a film. And, of course, Harrelson meets his obvious outcome. And the Tommy Lee Jones character, Ed Tom Bell, to me, he is the moral center of this film. And I've heard a lot of people that would criticize this film say, it doesn't really have a leading act, there's no main character, I completely disagree. The star of this film, in my opinion, is Tommy Lee Jones. He's the guy who's grown up in West Texas, who's been a sheriff, whose father was a sheriff. And he has seen the world become more diabolical. And he can't figure it out. And he's reading in the paper to one of his deputies one day about this couple that had a home and were killing the people and burying them in the backyard and things of that nature, and how society in general seems to have lost its moral center. It's a very cold place now. And it's a world that he's a part of, but he's not quite ready to be a part of this world. And he says earlier in the film, a man would have to be willing to put his soul at hazard. And you feel as though he feels, based off of what he's looking at in front of him, the kind of evil he's running up against, the fact that he knows he can't really stop it, but he's still going to fight the fight. He's still going to do what he feels needs to be done. But that it's a fool's errand. And he needs to be put out to pasture. His time has come. And regardless of how the situation with Llewellyn or Shigar, regardless of how that works out, whether he's able to save him and get him out of this and return him to his wife, to Kelly MacDonald's character, because there's a scene where he's speaking to her and he said, you tell him to call me when he wants, to be safe. I can help him. He knows he can only do so much. That Anton Chigurh represents where we're headed in a sense. This is a new type of criminal. And this isn't just an anomaly. This is where society has arrived. And he's not ready for that. And you think back to the lawmen before him, and everyone that goes into that line of work finally gets to a point where they realize maybe it's time for me to call it now. The type of policing, the type of tools I have at my disposal are no longer needed now. This is a world that has passed me by. And eventually Chigurh does contact Llewellyn, and he also comes to his inevitable outcome. But in a weird way, it's not really about that. It's not about whether Llewellyn will get away with the money or the briefcase or anything of that nature. This is about where are we as a world? Where are we as a society? What happened? When did we turn? When did this change come? When did we surrender to it? And there's a scene where he's talking with a friend played by Barry Corbin, who has a very small scene, but it's so beautiful. I've watched the scene so many different times, and it's only like 5 minutes, but it's so well written. And you never once catch Corbin or Tommy Lee Jones acting. It's just hard to do. I don't know how to say it other than that. It is as if they are just being themselves. And the Corbin character explains to him, you can't stop what's coming. And this world doesn't wait on anybody. And then he looks at him and says, that's vanity. And at the very end of the film, Tommy Lee Jones's character has retired, and he's talking with his wife. And he's explaining that he had had dreams about his father. And that one was kind of just, him needing some money and riding into town and getting something from his dad. But that the second one was that he had come across him in the olden days. And that his dad went by him and had, as he said, he was carrying fire. And that he went on and he said, I seemed to know that he would be there waiting for me when I got there. And I got the sense, and that's when the film goes black, which frustrates so many people. They feel like I've invested all this time in this film, and then now this abrupt, ambiguous ending. But I think what they were saying was, his time has come. His dad knows it. Now he's next in line. And he's made peace that whatever does happen, he will join his father again sometime. And he has found a certain type of solace in that. That he still got out while he was ahead. And now it's time for him to join the ranks. And the world has moved on. But he's got somebody out there waiting for him. And that's my take on it. Because I have to give it to the Coen brothers. They were brave enough to be ambiguous. And one of my biggest pet peeves with any film is when I feel that they've dumbed it down because they don't think we as viewers are smart enough to get it. With this film, I have to say, they challenged us, and I'm grateful for it because you feel watching this film that the Coen brothers must have respect for the viewers, and they reward us for it with a great piece of work. Until next time, thanks.